Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Parkinson's Disease Education Podcast. So maybe you've been through some formal therapy programs, speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy. They give you great exercises, you had great outcomes. Then they give you exercises that you can continue, but how do you keep those things up? It can be so hard to stay motivated, especially if apathy, depression, and anxiety are part of your everyday life with Parkinson's disease. That plus more is what we're going to be discussing in this episode. I say we because I'm co-hosting this episode again with Sarah Aud. We're going to be discussing specifically habit stacking and how to apply that to what we've talked about in previous episodes. Join us on the other side of the intro. We're going to be talking about that, plus a lot more about Get Loud, Stay Loud. You're going to want to stick around to find out more about that. Cue intro in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Parkinson's Disease Education Show, where we demystify the disease and empower you as the person with Parkinson's disease to reach your true potential. The content contained on this show is for informational purposes only and is not meant to be a replacement for information or advice that you receive from your in-person medical or therapy professionals. If you haven't already, I hope you'll consider subscribing, and for an even more personalized experience, please ask us about our memberships. Now, without further ado, let's start the show. Welcome back, everybody. This is our final episode, and we are going to be discussing how to put a lot of the things that we've talked about in previous episodes into daily practice. Because everybody at some point who goes through speech therapy, physical therapy, OT, whatever it is going to be, to help with Parkinson's management, you're going to be taught some really great things by your therapist. There are things that are going to be taught by your therapist that are probably going to be super helpful. But motivation wanes when you don't have an accountability coach with you all the time. So how do you become your own accountability coach? That's essentially what this episode is about. When I say that, I don't mean that you have to be alone in this. There's support systems in place. There's communities around to help you to stay motivated, but to also be self-motivated as well. First, Sarah and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the principle of habit stacking. And we'll explain that in brief in a second. I wanted to also point out before we dive into that there's a fantastic book that you and everybody, in my opinion, should read. And that's Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'm going to put a link in the description to that book. You can listen to it on Audible as well. It's a fantastic book for everyday life, and anybody can benefit from this. One of the things that I'm fond of from his book is that if you take 1% and make a 1% improvement continuously, you make tens of percents over time. I'm not articulating that in any way, shape, or form as good as he does, but Sarah, if you remember that better than I do, let me know.
If you make just a slight improvement, that 1% change or 1% improvement every day, by the end of a year, you will have improved 37 times from where you started from.
Yes, exactly. So habit stacking is a principle that comes, one of many principles that comes from that book. And that's what we're talking about, and tying that in with everything we've been talking about leading up to this point. In brief, habit stacking is essentially taking something that we or you do every single day and taking a new habit and putting it right on top of that existing habit that you do. For example, most of us, I hope, and we already talked about oral care, most of us brush our teeth at least once, if not twice, or 3 times a day in some cases. Most of us brush our teeth at the beginning or the end of the day. We may put on a pot of coffee. We may get dressed after a certain point in the morning. There's like moments throughout our days in every one of our lives where we do something consistently without having to think about it. It's already a habit. So you want to add a new habit, you stack it on top of an existing habit. So for example, I'll give you a personal example because it's easier to remember. Whenever I get up in the morning, coffee is already made because I set it on a timer. I make my kids breakfast, and then I pour my first cup of coffee. I walk into the living room, and my habit stack is I will pour my first cup of coffee, and before I drink my first cup of coffee, I will do 30 push-ups. And I do my 30 push-ups, and right after that, I drink my coffee.
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's an exercise motivation with a reward. So basically, one of the best habit stacking techniques is it could be a mundane kind of existing habit that you're stacking on top of, but it's nice to put some reward with it. It's something that you're looking forward to doing after you do the thing that you're trying to add. Anything you would add to that?
Just that I'm going to steal that one. I'm going to borrow that one. I really like that.
You're going to do 30 push-ups now?
Well, some sort of physical exercise. Yeah, I think that's really hard. And we've talked before, Michael, about how people with Parkinson's in particular can really struggle with motivation because of, the change in the neurotransmitters, because of the lack of dopamine in particular, which is one of your get up and go motivational neurotransmitters. So they're already quite behind the eight ball in being able to self motivate to do all the things they need to do to live well with Parkinson's. So I think any kind of trick or hack or program or system or routine that you can put in place that becomes that ingrained habit is going to go a long way to making those slow, gradual, but consistent improvements that literally, and in the book it explains this, that in the beginning it kind of seems like you're just going up in a really gradual, slight way, but then everything compounds and your improvements just arc up. And that's what he talks about in the book, is that 1%, 1%, 1% eventually ends up being 37 times better than when you initially started. So
Yeah.
You can't you can't downplay the impact of just adding those little small improvements to your systems and your habits every day.
Right. It's sort of similar to that principle of just start with one.
Yeah.
Um, one small habit stack
Yeah.
or one small habit added to your daily routine, especially something pertaining to exercise or
Mm-hmm.
vocal practice or physical exercise for,
Yeah.
it could be LSVT, big exercises, it could be a stretch, whatever it is. Just adding that one thing in could make a big impact on your life.
And
And
I
the thing
think
that,
people should only start with one thing at a time. I think
yeah,
I can fault myself for this as well. I tend to be an all or nothing. Okay, I'm going to start this. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to do my exercises. I'm going to, read in French because if you're learning a new language, what have you. But then you fail because you put too much on your plate and it's too overwhelming. I
yeah,
think it's a better plan to just start with, every day or every week, just adding that slight, small change to your routine. I think you're more likely to stay with it long term.
absolutely. If you try to, yeah, you're exactly right. If you overwhelm yourself, you'll be discouraged
Yeah.
and you won't be as successful because you won't see all the things you're doing more or better than
Yeah.
before. If you add the one thing, and it becomes a true habit, then you can add more habits on top of that.
That's right.
And in brief, that's actually part of the techniques for implementing habit stacking. Is first you want to list your current habits, everything that you're already doing, essentially as a routine. You have to choose the right cue because you want to be able to select an existing habit that matches the frequency and timing of your new goal. So you can't just add it somewhere random. You want to pick the right cue of whatever habit you're going to stack on top of. It has to match the time of day and place and things like that. Number three is be specific. My goal was very specific, about doing 30 push-ups. That's like my minimum every day. Although I have to admit Saturdays and Sundays are a struggle, but at least 5 days a week I'm doing that. So in other words, set something specific like do 30 push-ups versus all exercise. Does that make sense? So you want to be specific about what exercise and how many repetitions or whatever. And then finally, once you master a stack, you can chain numerous habits together so that they're, and so in other words, you could do several exercises at once or what have you. So
Yeah.
those are the four kind of implementation tricks that are not tricks, but implementation tips on that.
Yeah.
That leads us into daily practice, especially pertaining to what we've discussed in previous episodes about speech and voice exercises and so forth. So what does that look like or what can that look like for people?
Yeah. So we talked in one of the previous episodes, we talked about the core. I call them the bread and butter exercises that are specific to Parkinson's. And those two most important ones are the long, loud ah that you hold nice and loud, nice and strong. And then the pitch glide, the effortful pitch glide that you do. So if those are the core kind of bare bones essentials that you want to do, and you're doing them at home, maybe you can stack the habit of doing those on top of something else, like right after I take my medication, or right after I take the dog out for a quick walk, or right after I put the pot of coffee on. So that's something that you can habit stack. One recommendation that I make, if you're really pressed for time and you just don't want to set aside extra time for it, do your core voice exercises in the shower. So you already know you're going to go in there and shower and suds up. So you've got nice warm humidified air. You've got good acoustics. So you're going to get good voice feedback from when you're doing your vocalizations.
Yeah.
And you're dual tasking. So if at the very minimum, you could put those habits together. Something else you could do is I've talked a lot about how singing and doing musical based activities are really magical for Parkinson's.
Yeah.
There really isn't anything that singing doesn't target as far as communication, as far as strong voicing, respiratory control, fluency, pacing, articulation, word finding, cognition. It really encompasses everything. And something that I recommend to clients is that they, put YouTube on, put a favorite song on, and just sing along, because the lyrics will be on the screen in front of you. Sing along, in a nice, strong, loud voice. That's something you can easily weave into your day. So there's lots of different ways that you can take these little moments throughout the day to get some voice practice and some voice exercise done.
Those are great suggestions. One of the things about music also, especially as motivation tends to wane, in short, music actually, whether it's singing or playing an instrument, but especially playing an instrument, but even with singing, music literally uses every part of the human brain.
Yeah.
It's one of the, I don't know if there's many other activities in life that do that, but
Yeah.
music literally, and not everybody's a musical person, but even if you're not, even if you're tone deaf and you're singing along, you're still using
Yeah.
every part of your brain
Yeah.
because whether you are musical or not, music is going to be tied with memories, emotions. If you're singing along, you're using your motor pathways, you're using memory, you're using, again, you've got your cingulate gyrus, which and hippocampus, that's memory and emotion. There's coordination as well. Your cerebellum is being used because you're having to coordinate. The cerebellum basically helps regulate. It's a balance organ, but it helps to regulate all motor signals. So if you have a problem with your cerebellum, you're going to have issues with even speech coordination. So and swallowing. So you're literally using every part of the brain to
And then
make.
if you add in as well, like if you're snapping or clapping or
Yeah.
stomping your feet or swaying your body to the rhythm,
Yep.
now you're incorporating, that physical movement, and
Yep.
you're dual tasking. It's that whole coordination between the brain and the body
For
that
sure.
you're strengthening.
And again, if music is something that is special to you, it's even more important. But
Yeah.
again, everybody, I feel like, has some kind of a core memory, if you will,
Yeah.
um, tied to music of some kind. It could even be your mother singing to you as an infant, and you don't even maybe
Yeah.
particularly remember that, but your brain remembers it.
Absolutely.
Music can be highly motivating, and it can be super fun, especially if you are involved in some kind of a musical endeavor. And one of the things that we had put in our notes before this episode was, yes, there's music and singing as therapy. Obviously, singing is great for breath control, things like that, among other things. But there are actually choirs specifically involving persons with Parkinson's, and there's a lot of other music-based activities as well. But yeah, the PD choirs. I've heard some really amazing things about those groups.
Yeah. And a lot of them are available as a virtual option now as well. So if you don't live in an area near a big center, or you have reduced mobility, or there's transportation issues, you can still join in virtually. And as you mentioned, Michael, it's not about being a good singer. It's not about having a good voice or being in tune. It's the therapeutic benefits of using all of those systems in the body together, that really have the impact.
Absolutely. The other thing too is, you know, I've talked about this with group exercise classes like Rock Steady Boxing or Big for Life. If you've done LSVT Big and you're in a group version, the social aspect is huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it takes a village to support a person with Parkinson's, and it takes a village to support each other. And being in isolation is one of the worst things you can do once you're diagnosed with Parkinson's. There's a lot of stigma. I think some of it's self-perceived, and there is some real stigma as well. But I think because of that stigma, people tend to want to keep it to themselves or isolate, or I don't want to burden people, or whatever the motivation may be to stay by yourself. But depression is one of the things that is super easy to have. Even if you don't have Parkinson's, depression is common in anybody that isolates. Mm-hmm. And in Parkinson's, when depression can come along with the territory because of the disease process, it's even more likely to be a problem. So if you're depressed, you're not motivated, you're already going to have apathy and lack of motivation potentially over time with Parkinson's anyway. So these group programs, be it something like Rock Steady or whatever, or the PD choirs, it gives you a reason to be out and with other people. Even if it's virtual, you're still connecting with other individuals, and that's super important to stay motivated in practice as well.
Yeah, that social aspect is huge.
Yeah, it can't be emphasized enough how important that is. Something else that Sarah mentioned is that, or we mentioned in our conversation prior to this, is that there are often opportunities in our everyday functional life that are opportunities to practice your voice exercises and so forth. Do you mind sharing those examples again?
Yeah, so I call these mini moments, and it's just really something you can easily do at the top of your day. Think of what your day might entail, who you might encounter, those short little interactions that you might have. You're going to greet your neighbor when you see them. You're going to have to call your dog at the dog park. You're going to be calling the pharmacy later to ask about a script, order a pizza, et cetera, order coffee through the drive-through. So just jotting down those mini moments and say, okay, in those moments today, I'm going to make an extra concerted effort to be very loud and clear and intentional with my speech. And we talk about, kind of overshooting what feels natural in order to compensate for that low amplitude that Parkinson's is trying to impose on all the systems of your communication. So during those mini moments, those really quick, short interactions, you're going to really focus on being loud and clear. And I think that number one gives you confidence that you can be understood in those situations. And number two, it's that reward system. People are maybe commenting, wow, you sound great today. Or the reward is they're not asking you to repeat yourself, or they're not saying, pardon, I didn't understand you. Could you repeat that? So I like that idea of making it a functional carryover into real life. You're at the grocery store and you want to speak to the cashier. They're nice, quick, short interactions where you can tell yourself that you are going to make that extra effort to be understood. And I think that goes a long way to improving over time.
Yeah, and the reason those mini therapeutic moments can be really good is not only the practice itself, but it gives you an awareness as the person with Parkinson's of how loud you're actually being or not being. It's direct feedback. It's direct feedback for how well you're articulating, how well your speech volume is, and it's sort of like how we do an LSVT big or an LSVT loud as well. Is we a lot of times a patient's spouse or care partner is around and they can notice differences, and so they can help that person to to calibrate how big or how loud they're being by actually noticing. So as far as speech would be, it'd be like, can you repeat that, or use your loud voice? I can't understand you. So doing that, especially doing that in public with people like a pharmacist or whoever, that's another way. It's objective feedback, but especially somebody who's like, wow, I didn't get all those words. Can you say that one more time? Oh, sorry, I need to use my loud voice.
Exactly.
Speak with intent.
And it speaks to that sensory perceptual issue that's present in Parkinson's, where a quiet voice sounds normal and okay to a person with Parkinson's. So knowing that that's what's happening, we have to recalibrate the brain. We have to start becoming aware. And one of the things you can do is audio taping yourself when you're talking or reading aloud. And I think that gives people that insight. You've got that biofeedback to say, oh, wow, I really do mumble a little bit, or I'm not as loud as I thought I was being. So I think those moments where you can become more aware of the issues that are happening, you're more likely to do something to change it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Similar principle with, and I'm guilty of not doing this really, but I should, is doing video feedback of patients. With LSVT Big, we'll often do video feedback. I say often it's recommended, I should say, to do video feedback to show before and afters, but also to show your patients either how they're not moving big enough or how they've improved. Because people can, in your case, people might say, like, I feel like I'm yelling at people, but then you record them and they're like, oh, I just sound like normal. And the same thing with LSVT Big. We might tell somebody, like, okay, walk across the room so big it feels crazy. And they do it, and then you record them and it looks like normal gait. And they go like, wow, I thought I looked like a robot, but I look perfectly normal. So
the penny drops. All of a sudden they say, oh, okay. That's what it looks like.
Those are those aha moments where somebody starts to recognize. But here's the thing, that's where the group can, again, the many moments can help with that. The groups can help with that as well. So that's one of the things we wanted to tie into this episode and to wrap things up with, is we've mentioned it before, but this is definitely the moment where we wanted to highlight a key way to help with multiple things we talked about in this episode. There's accountability. We talked about being held accountable in a loving way by peers and everybody surrounding you to say, like, okay, you can do this. Let's keep going. It's important. Make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. To stay motivated, accountability can help you stay motivated. There's other ways to stay motivated, but also ways to incorporate short and approachable daily practice for these things we've been discussing. So that's where we're wrapping all this up and condensing it to talk about Get Loud, Stay Loud once again as an option for helping with all of those things. Get Loud, Stay Loud is a community. It's not some class you sign up for and one and done. It's a community, and it's something that helps you to have that accountability and motivation and to do that daily practice, because it's literally available at least during the week, right? It's the live classes are available during the work week, but there's also recorded things available at all times.
Yeah, and that's why I created the program. Is I realized that a lot of people did struggle with staying accountable and doing these, because it's not something where you can just, okay, I did my intense exercises for a month, now I'm good. We know Parkinson's is lifelong and it's degenerative. We have to keep at it. We have to keep working on our voice and our speech. And so this is a way that people can, participate in expert-led voice and speech exercise classes, whether it's live or on demand, your choice, led by a team that is leading you through the right exercises to do, and it is guiding you on the intensity of the exercises, and is giving you that option of doing it on a regular basis so that you can make gains, so that you can slow the decline of these things happening. So all of our classes are between 10 and 20 minutes a day. So it's completely feasible that you could tune in and do a class every single day. because it's not easy. We talk about all the things you can do at home, and I encourage people to do those things at home. Do what you can, add those things into your day. But for some people, just being a part of this program just gives them that, that center, that core where they feel that they have that support and that place that they can go to where they know they're getting the right exercises done.
Yeah, and the fact that it can be accessed literally anywhere because it's virtual is a game changer. And that's something that honestly, for programs like LSVT Big with the group programs, it's just not that feasible because, for one thing, doing the exercises like we do as physical therapists or occupational therapists, it's not really always a safe option to have a virtual practice. And so, but this is something that can be done virtually safely, and also you have all the benefits of a group or individual practice.
Yeah, and we have really, over the 6 years that it's been running, we've really expanded the programming because we recognize that for some people it's not just about the loudness of their voice or the quality. For some people it's really the facial masking, or it's the slurred speech, or it's the word retrieval difficulties. So we have a bunch of different styles of classes. So every person that joins can take we call it our SMART survey, and we can maybe link it down below as well. The SMART survey, which they just answer 3 questions about their communication difficulties they're having, and it guides you towards the classes that will most target the specific communication concerns that you're having.
We could definitely put a link to that down below. That would be very important, and it's a great way to know yourself a little bit more. And to know what could be a good fit for you if you do decide to join Get Loud, Stay Loud, and try it. The thing that I love about Sarah's program is, and it's rare, honestly, nowadays to find this, in my opinion, but she allows a full month of use of this program to try before you even commit to buying anything. So if you do it and you think, I don't know if this is the right fit for me, no harm, no foul. But if you continue the membership, it's a very affordable price. I won't disclose that unless you want me to, Sarah, but it's a very affordable price.
It's $34.99 a month, which I think is really reasonable.
It's extremely reasonable for what you're getting out of it. I can promise you, because having daily live classes for that amount is insanely affordable. So not only do you get that month free, everybody gets that. But if you use my link that's down below in the description, you will, in addition to that, get a 50% discount off of your first paid month. It's the code Highland50 at checkout. I've got that in the description below, but just wanted to say that out loud so you can hear it as well. But yeah, that's a great deal. So I would highly recommend trying it. And I've known about it for several years, but we decided to do this series as a collaboration to not only discuss all these all these important issues to discuss with Parkinson's and changes that can happen in speech, swallowing, and beyond, but a way to do something about it beyond simply seeing a local speech language pathologist, which is important, by the way, but a way to continue on in perpetuity, just to keep going.
Yeah. No, it's a community. It's a community, and we're there, and that's what it's meant to be. That we're there for the duration.
Yes, and that's the biggest part of it in my mind, is the community aspect. That's actually one of the things that everything that is done is important, but the community aspect is again one of the most important aspects of a program like this. So I would highly recommend it and consider it. I appreciate all of you for following this series through. It's been fun to do, a lot of work, but fun to do. And we hope that you'll consider joining Get Loud, Stay Loud, and giving it a try. If nothing else, we hope this information has been really helpful for you in knowing what to look out for, knowing what to do about things as they come along. Sarah, thanks for being willing to make this series, and
thanks for having me.
We appreciate your expertise. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Be empowered. We'll see you around.